Wonder what the hooter sounds like. This is the Baic Beijing X55. Now, many of you out there would have heard of this, would have heard rumors about it, stories about it, and some of you might not have heard about it at all. But it's causing quite a stir in the market, especially in the sub 500,000 Rand category, which is the busiest category in South Africa.
We visited MyRide Baic Weskus to test drive the car that won the compact family class for Car of the Year in 2023. The much talked about Beijing X55.
But before we jump into the test drive, a little history lesson first.
Baic is one of China's biggest manufacturers and was founded in 1958. The same year they produced China's very first sedan. 3 years later they produced China's first light off-road vehicle, which would go on to remain a bestseller for 3 decades. The company has bought technology from the now defunct Saab automobile and has existing joint ventures with Mercedes-Benz and Hyundai. By 2013, the company decided to go international, and now they've arrived in South Africa.
So now that we know that Baic has a rich history, let's talk about the styling. First thing that pops into view are these door handles over here that sit flush. On the top spec model, this one over here, it pops out automatically. Then you can get up to 19-inch wheels and tires, and it sits on hand-cooked tires, which is a pleasant surprise. Many pleasant surprises on this car, including these LED lights. And let's talk about the front here. Certainly a highlight for most. It kind of looks like an electric car with the absence of a big grille and intake. Very, very chic and good looking. And if you look closely, the amount of detail that this front grille has, it's impressive, even on very, very close inspection. So what does the X55 drive like? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Finally, I'm driving the Baic Beijing X55. That's the name. And it's been a long time coming. I've been asked about this car for months and months and months, and now finally I'm sat behind the wheel, but I almost feel like I kind of know it already. My colleagues have been talking about this car for months on end, and no surprises. I think a lot of it's as advertised. The ergonomics are surprisingly solid, and the screen over here, even though it's square, I can see what I need to see through the steering wheel over here, and the way the steering wheel itself feels natural. Speaking of ergonomics, you've got the gear lever in the middle here that fits perfectly in my giant hand, and it's just well thought out. This 10.1-inch screen over here is easy-ish to use if you spend some time with it. So now I'm driving on a slightly bumpier road, and now I can start to feel the suspension moving as well, and I can feel the suspension working. It's not as refined as some of its German counterparts for sure, but it's certainly ahead of the pack, especially in that sub 500,000 Rand bracket. And therein lies one of the inherent problems with this car, is because you end up comparing it to cars that are much, much more expensive, like Kia's Sportage, which can end up costing you around 730,000 Rand.
The top spec premium costs 480,900 and the bottom spec dynamic 420,900. You could also get the Elite for 450,900, which slots right in the middle.
When you get a car like this, you want all the features, right? And that's exactly what you get. You've got automatic wipers, electrically adjustable seats. I mean, that's just wonderful. Rake and reach adjustable steering, heated and vented seats. The list goes on and on and on. The Chinese have officially arrived, with companies like Chery leading the charge. It's now Baic that's inserted itself into that 3-horse race between Haval, Chery and Beijing. Now the consumer is left with many more solid options. Oh, and by the way, no more fumbling with your phone and sharing devices. No. This one's got in-car Wi-Fi as well. On this 10.1-inch screen, you've got the reverse camera on this model, which is, by all accounts, high resolution, especially if you compare to cars that cost the same. For example, Renault's Captur, which in my opinion doesn't match, at least not when it comes to the camera stakes. No review would be complete without the obligatory mention of the 6 airbags, the automatic braking that's available, also collision detection, ABS of course, and stability control. It also happens to have 5 stars in the Chinese NCAP test, which means you've got a little bit of surety when cruising around in your Chinese car. The official claim for the Baic X55 is 7.7 liters per 100, which is absolutely achievable. But like most Chinese cars, if you put your foot down, you will get extra fuel consumption. But me personally, I'm able to easily get 8 liters per 100 and dip into the 7s every now and then. The engine in here is a 1.5 liter unit, which is developed in conjunction with a German company. It's not official, but we do suspect that Mercedes-Benz had something to do with this engine as well. Thankfully, the engine is turbocharged, unlike some of its competitors running 1.5 normally aspirated engines, so you're never left wanting when it comes to acceleration and getting up to speed or overtaking ability, etc. There's enough. In fact, there's over enough, I think. In cars like these, one of my favorite features is the panoramic sunroof. And oh, just look at that. Look at the size of that. Am I going to have to touch that button again? No, I don't. Some manufacturers make you touch the button twice to get the full effect. This one, nope, that's it. That's as far as it goes. Wow, that's big. That's big. So what don't we like so far? Well, these vents over here, as cool as they look, I suspect you're going to have to keep them clean often. Small price to pay, I think. I think also somebody is going to moan about the fact that the fuel consumption might be too high, but best to just tell that somebody to maybe drive a little slower next time. Then there's of course future resale value, which has always been a question for new cars on the market. Best thing is to speak to your dealer and figure out if you can work something out with them. But if Haval and Cherry's trajectory has been anything to go by, I think this one's going to be fine too. So now I'm finally starting to figure out all these different modes and settings on the steering wheel here, and you can even check tire pressure and tire temperature, something that most people don't bother ever looking at, but it's kind of cool to have. You've also got detailed displays on refueling, starting, reset, so you can keep a close eye on that mileage and distance covered. Then of course you can have music, Bluetooth, phone and editors on the dash as well. There are various modes to choose from in this car, but I generally stick to the normal eco mode. A quick shortcut, push the lever all the way down, and now all of a sudden you're in sport mode. It does seem a little bit more sporty. And it also means that I can now get access to those 7 speeds a lot easier and a lot quicker. Stepping inside the Beijing X55, and one is immediately taken aback by what looks like a very high quality interior. Let's start with these seats. Single piece units, and they look like sports car seats wrapped in leatherette, and they've also been perforated so you get heated and cooling seats up front. This cubby hole is huge and is also cool down the middle there. You've also got extra little storage pockets, and these two on top are my favorite because they are exactly phone sized, so you and your passenger don't have to argue over who gets the pockets in front here. The dash is sloped away, and that means that it feels even more spacious and airy inside here. Let's not forget you got these two screens in front of you, both fully digital, and unfortunately for those that like volume knobs and the like, this unfortunately has everything housed in the infotainment system. You do however get controls on the steering, and although they are quite simple, you're able to do most of what's needed over here. The finishes inside here, including these door handles and switch gear, are very, very high quality at first glance, because thanks to that Mercedes-Benz partnership, these here are actually Mercedes-Benz units. So anybody that spent any time in a Merc recently will see some familiar fittings. Now, if you were considering getting one of the other models, yes, you can save yourself some money. But if you look at the monthly installments, I think I'd go for this one just because of all the interior features. Gee whiz. This is my genuine reaction at the moment, because there's ample space here, even with my seating position as it is, and it just feels like I'm in the back of something expensive, and I'm not. Now this is turning out to be quite an impressive little package so far. So now we get to experience it in the urban setting. And what's it like to drive on perfectly smooth roads? Oh, it's such a difference inside this car. And this is when you start to notice those everyday things that you got to live with, like the sound of the indicator. Nice, pleasant. Like the visibility out the cabin. Also good and pleasant. It does feel like the car is quite comfortable doing this type of driving. There you go. I need to turn the steering all the way. Oh, that's quite sharp. That's quite sharp, actually. Wonder what the hooter sounds like. As is often the case with cars like these, you might want to spec those wheels slightly smaller. This one has the 19-inch, which of course looks amazing, and on perfectly smooth roads like this, it's just fine. But the bigger bumps, they are a little bit more noticeable, and I do suspect it's because of those 19-inch wheels, and my recommendation, maybe get the 18s.
If you do want the 18s, you will have to go for the entry-level dynamic. But there's so much more on offer with the elite and premium models, including those 19s.
South Africans are a difficult bunch to please when it comes to the kind of cars that we want. It doesn't help that historically manufacturers have charged quite a hefty premium. We pay more than many other countries do for the same cars, but not with this one. The Beijing X55 is so competitively priced that it's hard to look the other way. And if you are looking in this direction, you're probably going to be looking at Chery and Haval too. It is an incredible car for the money, and that is the biggest selling point for the X55. Dare I say, Baic hit a hole-in-one.
Oops. And go ahead.
I know that didn't look like that much of a close call, but it was pretty close, and I almost took out the pensioner here in the West Coast, which would not be ideal.
Home to Nissan, Hyundai, Isuzu, Renault, JAC, FAW, multi-franchise branches including the MyRide brand, and now Chery and Baic too. MyRide Group is your one-stop shop for all your motoring needs in the Western Cape and Gauteng. Visit myride.co.za to find out more.